Did I mark? I don't know if I did. I don't know if I did. Yes, I did. I did. Because I'm smart. I marked it.
Hooray.
Hi. How are you all? Hopefully well. I'm tired. I'm only late because the kettle took too long. Thank you. Somehow it worked out really well for me, and I walked into Barnes & Noble yesterday in this exact same outfit and asked for a bunch of questionable books. And I didn't scar the employee this time. So Episode 7. Nice. So I'm really happy that I didn't scar this Barnes & Noble employee, because normally they get uncomfortable after a few minutes of me going down my book list. So it all worked out well. Why did I take that as in an ominous, threatening tone? I don't. Yes, I assume so. How much water are you assuming I need? As I cough nervously.
That's okay. There's a whole nother liter over here if you need
I was
more.
gonna say, I was like, this is what?
About a liter, I think.
Yeah. Because there's like half of it. Yeah. It's like a liter and it's like half of it. And I made tea. So I made tea because I deserve it, because I have to read a lot of French. Yes. Yes, it is. Very astute. So this is my reward for speaking French.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice tea.
The tea is very delightful.
Thank you. I made it in a rush. So.
Well, regardless, it is very delightful.
Exactly my feelings on the matter, Crimson. I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. I don't want to speak French. I don't want to look at French. I don't want to think about French. It's fun. I got to talk about Finland an egregious amount over my weekend. So it compensates. It evens out. I do like to talk about Finland.
It's a pretty dope country, dog.
I do so much. No. Although I firmly am on their side in the Olympics term of things. France made some good points, but I will afford them that. I just do not like the language. Finland deserves to be talked about. It does. Finland is a beautiful country with a beautiful landscape. You can see the Aurora Borealis there. It's lovely. It's lovely. Look up Finland. Everybody look up Finland. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot. A whole lot. I'll talk about it a little. A moderate amount about Finland. What is up? I don't know. It's fine. Everything's fine. We weren't... Respect Finland. Anyway, that's it. Finland doesn't get enough credit. They
No, it
really
really doesn't. And the only reason I'm playing nice with my mother is in 2 summers I might be able to go to Sweden and visit one of her friends. It's like a family trip, so like that's the only reason I'm being nice with my mother. I won't have to pay for a single thing, so like...
Yeah, get all you can out of it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, if you look up some of the scenery in Finland, looks absolutely amazing. That is my ideal favorite country, is Finland. If I could move anywhere in the world, I would move to Finland. Hi, Toby. Everybody, say hi to Toby.
Hi, Toby.
Thank you for you. I appreciate it. The one resident dog that we respect. No, we also respect Danky. Just not Scout. Although, Dave sent me a TikTok the other day that was Tim Walls' dog is named Scout.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, oh.
Hey, we got that in common, bro.
Lovely. Did not know that. Yeah. So, that was really fun to find out. I thought so too. It is fabulous. I don't want to. No, I'm not going to say that. Because then every time I start talking about politics, TikTok is like, it puts like a banner out, and I'm like, no, this is a book club. If you aren't familiar and you're in here, this is a book club. I don't sit here and talk about politics or otherwise. I read words on a page and you listen to them. And if you don't like books and you don't want to be part of a book club, this probably isn't for you. Especially because we're majority through a series right now. We've been slowly working our way through Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and we're on book 6, The Desolations of Devil's Acre. So if you haven't kept up with that, you can go to the YouTube link in my bio and find all of the rest of it. However, I have not uploaded last week's chapter, but I will once I get my hands on it. So, and this week, we are starting at chapter 14. And if you missed what's going on up until this point, the kids have to get Noor to Miss Turn's Loop right outside of World War I. I mean that both physically and timeline-wise. She's just outside of it on both accounts, because time and space is weird because there's time loops, and Miss Turn is an Imbrin who does not know she dies. So that must be great. In any case, Miss Turn's loop got obliterated, so they have to time skip their way through multiple loops to get there. And now, the kids are going to Miss Hawksbill's loop to try and get to Miss Turn's loop so that they can get Noor to find the rest of the 7. So that's where we're at right now. And this is probably going to be a little bit of a heavy chapter, both in terms for me and you, because we're going to war, and also I have to speak French. So we all have to put up with that. We all have to make sacrifices, okay? So you're going to have to put up with my bad French, and we're all going to have to put up with war, because, I don't know, what is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
There you go. Aren't you glad I tossed that one to you?
Yes, because I was going to.
There you go. I set you up for that one. That's your freebie. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. And that's it. And if you ask for more, you're greedy and you should be ashamed. Everybody gets one pun.
Is that so I won't do the other one later?
Yes!
I thought so.
I set you up to fail. Congratulations. Anyway, who is ready to jump into war with us? We have a few pictures, so I don't know exactly how long. I blocked out 2 chapters for this. So, but it's not punny enough with one. That should be all you require. This is a sanctioned, I'm making a union. No, I'm not. It's fine. All right, here we go. Chapter 14. 7 teenagers and a dog said goodbye to the 3 Imbrans and marched through the open door. Our boots clomped to the edge of the carpet, then across a blanket of fallen leaves.
Go quickly now, my pets. We must shut the door, Miss Wren called, shooing a clingy Horace after us. When he was fully clear of the room, the Imbrans waved at us from the hallway and pulled the door shut. There was no time for long, tearful goodbyes. They had to shut down the Panlupticon before Call or any of his monsters could slip through. The 3-walled room wavered in the air like a heat distortion, then dimmed away and disappeared. And we were alone in a forest in France with no obvious way back home, or to the place I had started to think of as home anyway. A gust of wind flurried the leaves around us and made a lonely sound through the trees. Emma clapped her hands, cutting through the heavy silence that had begun to accrue. Right, she barked. Job 1. Find Miss Hawksbill.
We looked around. There was no path, no trail, no signage. The forest thickened into dense brush ahead of us and climbed over a blind hill in the other, so we couldn't see far in any direction. Nor turned to Millard.
I saw you packing maps. Reams and sheaves of them, he replied. But since we don't know where we are right now, they won't do us much good. We're in a forest, said Bronwyn. Thank you. I can see that. We've got to find a landmark.
From the direction of the brush came a distant rattle of gunfire.
War's over that way, Horace said, pointing.
That settles it. You're all geniuses, said Enoch. Addison popped up on his hind legs. If Miss Turn's loop is on the other side of the front lines, why don't we simply follow the shooting and cross over?
Because, Horace said slowly, we could get shot.
The low boom of an explosion rumbled from the direction of the front. Or blown up, Enoch added. Well, try not to, Addison harumphed. For supposedly heroic people, you worry an awful lot about things like that.
Heroic isn't the same thing as stupid, Horace said.
Addison growled at him. Can he be muzzled? Enoch said to no one in particular. Emma separated them before the situation could escalate.
You're all being stupid. Look, we'll find our own way across if we have to, but before we resort to that, we must try and find Miss Hawksbill.
If only Olive were here to float above the trees and spot for her house, said Millard. Or we could try this, I said. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted, Miss Hawksbill! Horace leapt at me and tried to clap his hands over my mouth. Be quiet! But I shoved him off.
When has that ever been an acceptable way to find an Imbran?
When no one else has a better idea, I said.
But soldiers might come. If you're going to do it that way, you've got to be much louder, said Bronwyn, and then she threw her head back and bellowed at the top of her lungs. Miss Hawksbill! Horace clapped his hands over his face and muttered, You're dreaming again. Wake up, Horace. Emma shrugged. Perhaps we should all shout.
And so we did, Horace included. We screamed until we ran out of breath, and the woods echoed Miss Hawksbill's name, and in the quiet that followed, we listened. Even the distant guns had fallen silent,
and I began to wonder whether we'd made a mistake and a squad of soldiers was about to burst through the trees to mow us down. Instead, from over the hill behind us, we heard a small voice call, "Hello?" We turned to see a figure in a dress and a large hat at the top of the hill. I couldn't see her face. Whoever it was must not have liked the looks of us, because she immediately turned and darted back into the trees. "Don't let her get away," Millard shouted. We took off running, loaded down with heavy packs, feet thundering in heavy boots. I crested the hill to see more forest stretching out ahead of us. Addison barked, his body forming an arrow. The figure disappeared behind a strand of brush. We ran after her until we came to a clearing and a small thatch-roofed cottage. It was ringed by burned trees and singed shrubs, and in the front yard, what had once been a flower bed was now a pair of bomb craters with a narrow gravel path threading between them to a front door, which slammed shut just as I laid eyes on it. We could hear someone rattling around inside the cottage. A large sign staked into the yard read, "Keep off grass," in 3 languages, though there wasn't much grass left to keep off of. "Miss Hawksbill," Bronwyn shouted, "we need to talk with you." A small shuttered window slapped open and an old woman's face peeped out. "Va te faire Croix-Neuf," she shouted. "Go away! I have nothing to say to anyone." She slammed the shutter closed, then opened it again to bark, "And stay off my grass," before pulling it shut. "We need your help," Emma shouted. "Please." "The Embrans sent us," I yelled. The shutter opened again. "What did you say?" "The Embrans sent us?" She gaped at us. "You are peculiar." "We're in your loop, aren't we?" Enoch said. She frowned doubtfully, stared at us for a moment longer, then disappeared from the window without a word. We looked at one another dumbfounded. What kind of Embran was this? We heard a heavy lock turn and the front door swung open. Miss Hawksbill said, "Well, you better come in then and step lively." We hurried in single file between the craters. One was still smoking and smelled like fresh earth. The bomb had fallen only recently, which, since this was a loop, meant that it exploded 30 feet from Miss Hawksbill's front door every day. She stood, propping the door open with her foot, glaring as we went inside. She might have been in her 70s, physically, but if I knew anything about Embrans, she was probably twice as old, if not older. She kept her hair in a gray bun so tight it looked painful, and wore a long blanket-like dress that was the color of dried blood. But what caught everyone's attention was her right hand, which was wrapped in a cast and hung from a sling around her neck. "Hurry up now and get inside, and don't sit on my furniture, damn you," she growled in a French accent. Her little cottage was just a single wide room. Against one wall hulked in a midnight black cooking range and a rough dining table. In the center was a lumpy sofa and some bookshelves, and a massive wood-framed bed occupied another wall. When the last of us was inside, she slammed the door shut and shouted, "Protégez vos oreilles," and clapped her hands over her ear, and a moment later a blast rattled the house. The lantern swung from the ceiling, and dirt came flying into the room through the small window she'd left open. "Sacre merde," she swore, running toward the pile of steaming dirt that had landed on her floor. Horace uncovered his head. "Was that another bomb?" "I told you to keep off the grass. I opened my shutters because of you, and look what's happened. Who's going to clean up this mess?" "We will, of course," Bronwyn said, rushing to help. "And your wards?" Emma said, scanning the room curiously. My wards! Miss Hawksbill flung 2 more shutters open and daylight poured in. Are useless. Lost them all, said a low, booming voice. How dare you! It had come from a giant, mounted moose head propped on a table by the bed. Oh, don't be so sensitive, Theo, Miss Hawksbill said. The moose's head's lips curled. I wasn't the one who left the window open, it replied tartly. Oh, shut up, Theo, said a shrill voice, and then another voice concurred in French. In the bright new light, I could see that the walls and much of the ceiling were covered in stuffed and mounted animal heads. They were talking to one another. What wicked sorcery keeps the bodiless but alive? Horace cried. My God, Addison shouted, backing away from the Imbrin. She's a serial murderer. Don't insult her, Emma hissed at him. These are your wards? Millard asked her. A menagerie of the dead, Addison wailed. We aren't dead, roared the mounted head of a bear, which set off a chorus of arguing voices. We are, technically. No, we aren't, in a volley of French insult. Bête conflapide, concombe en valise s'empoigne, until Miss Hawksbill raised her arms and shouted, Be silent! And the bickering ceased. She turned to us with a sigh. I suppose I must explain. Here are some pictures of Miss Hawksbill's cottage and all of her
Love it.
mounted wards.
Love it.
Just this angry French lady that I can't talk like.
I know who should play her in the movie.
What?
I know who should play her in the movie.
Who?
Isabella Rossellini. She could play a very angry French lady, and she speaks the language.
I believe you. My French is rusty at best.
Here's your refill.
Thank you. At the risk of being rude, we don't really have time, Emma said. Do you know a Miss Turn? The Imbrans struggled to suppress a look of shock. The heads began to mutter among themselves until Miss Hawksbill gave them a vicious shush. Miss Turn's loop has been gone a very long time, she said. Emma nodded. Her loop was destroyed a few years after yours was created, and yes, Miss Turn was my sister. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Do you mean in the way that all Imbrans are sisters? Bronwyn asked. Or by blood? Miss Hawksbill drew up her chin proudly. In the way of having shared a mother and a womb, and when we fledged into full Imbrans, we made adjacent loops so we could be close to each other. We were all stunned. It was one thing for Miss Peregrine to have a pair of somewhat peculiar brothers. It was a much rarer thing for an Imbran to be sisters with another Imbran. My sister was a true prodigy and graduated from Miss Avoset's Academy 2 years before I did. When I eventually completed my training, I came here to establish a loop near hers, as we had planned. I meant to collect a group of wards like yourselves, human, peculiar children from all walks of life. Miss Hawksbill looked away. Her face fell into shadow. Before I had the chance, a mere week after this house was completed, a Hologast killed my sister. When her life ended, so did her loop. The bomb she'd been holding at bay fell on the house. I took it upon myself to rescue all her animals who survived, and many that did not. A talented taxidermist was able to save many I had feared beyond saving, and preserve their lives and voices, if not the entirety of their bodies. She gestured to the walls with a sweep of her hand. I brought them here. They became my wards.
So this loop was a kind of memorial to that lost one, filled with the animated remains of peculiar animals. What a strange, sad place.
If you don't mind me asking, Bronwyn said, why didn't you leave here after Miss Turn's loop was destroyed? Take the heads elsewhere. So I could visit her now and then, she replied, though it's a bit like calling on a forgetful ghost, as it's always the same day for her, and she never remembers my last visit. We need to reach her, Noor said, and soon.
Miss Hawksbill turned to study her.
And what's your peculiarity, young lady?
The way she said it made it seem like she already knew. Rather than explain herself, Noor scooped a handful of light from the air, tucked it into her cheek, and swallowed. Miss Hawksbill gazed at the churning black spot between them for a moment, then broke into a smile.
You came, she said. Finally.
Noor's eyes narrowed.
What do you mean, finally? Are you familiar with a book written by a madman named Robert LaBorge?
Bob, the Revelator, author of the Apocryphon. Noor sucked in her breath, then tried to cover her surprise.
You know about...
She lowered her voice.
The prophecy? All I know is you're expected.
I told you they would come, intoned the Moosehead gravely. In due time. Millard tossed his arms up and cried,
We were right! We've done it!
Am I the first? Noor asked excitedly. Or have other people already come? The heads were all murmuring among themselves about Noor.
Maybe,
replied Miss Hawksbill mysteriously.
But they didn't come this way. There are other avenues to reach my sister's loop, if you're not in such a hurry.
But is there a way from here to there? Said Emma.
A safe one? Well, naturally. She squinted at us. Can any of you fly?
Emma frowned.
No? Oh. Then, no. But there is a dangerous way.
Emma's face fell. Horace shrank back against the wall.
That'll have to do, Millard said. Will you show us? But of course, said Miss Hawksbill, plucking a furry hat from her head and clapping it onto her head. You'd never make it without me. Au revoir, mes enfants, she called to the head. Vous avez l'intelligente voiture.
Casse-toi, they were chorused in reply, and then she hiked up her dress and opened the front door. Not much. We screamed for Miss Hawksbill. She showed up. All of her wards are dead animal heads. And now, we're going to go to Miss Turn's loop. That's how much you missed. We're at a break, so good time for you to come in. There's a break in the chapter. And you missed most of my horrible French. So, this is really good for you. You came in at the best time. Anyway, Miss Hawksbill led us past the smoking craters in her yard, which now numbered 3, and into the woods. We headed for the sound of distant guns, which had gone from occasional to regular, trudging toward a war while Noor hummed, "We're off to see the wizard." A clammy blanket of dread settled over me. Twice in 5 minutes, Miss Hawksbill stopped at a fork in the path and seemed briefly confused before choosing one.
I normally travel this route by wing, she said apologetically.
We began to trade worried glances. Millard unfolded a map from his coat pocket and attempted to read it while walking.
I think we're about here, he mumbled, and the front lines are somewhere over that way.
The path broke through the trees, followed the edge of a hill. In the distance below us, we could see the fighting for the first time. Confused lines of trenches and barbed wire ran like sutures through fields so blown to hell they resembled the surface of the moon. In the middle was no man's land, a rutted cavity of smashed tanks and splintered trees. A shroud of smoke hung thickly over it all.
"My God,"
I heard Bronwyn murmur behind me.
"This side here, closest to us, is the British and the French,"
Miss Hawksbill explained as she walked.
"The Germans occupy the opposite side. My sister's loop entrance is over there."
She gestured toward the German side.
"In that town."
"What town?" Nora asked, squinting into smoky distance. A mortar shell landed in no man's land, sending up a fountain of brown mud.
"See that patch of rubble behind the German lines? If that was ever a town, it's not one anymore," Emma said. "It's just a big hole in the ground."
"This entire countryside's a hole in the ground," said Millard. Addison began to recite. "They sent forth men to battle, but no such men return, and home to claim their welcome come ashes in an urn."
"Aeschylus,"
Millard said appreciatively, and Addison nodded.
"Isn't there some way around the fighting?"
asked Horace.
"Must we really go straight through?" "Not unless you grow wings," said Miss Hawksbill. "The front lines stretch to the sea and 100 miles in the other direction."
You aren't suggesting we simply walk across no man's land," Horace said.
"We'll be shot to bits the instant we pop our heads over the burn."
Miss Hawksbill stopped, poked a finger to his chest.
"You will not, if you heed me."
She pointed to the trenches below.
"At this moment on this day in history, that pitch of ground there is the deadliest place in the world. From here on, you must watch me very closely. Mirror my actions, tread my footsteps, do exactly what I do, and we'll have a safe crossing. Otherwise..."
Her eyes traversed each of our faces, searing with intensity.
"We won't."
We assured her we would, and we meant it. The path sloped downward, and soon our view of the front was obscured again behind trees. We descended into a forested valley of ghostly fog, where we joined a dirt road. It was tough to see more than 100 feet ahead, but Miss Hawksbill walked with such confidence that we never doubted she knew where she was going. It occurred to me that, at some point, we must have passed through a membrane and exited Miss Hawksbill's loop into the outer past. Unless Miss Hawksbill's loop was miles wide, which it almost certainly wasn't. But the transition from inner loop to outer past had been subtle enough, or it happened while we were distracted enough, that we hadn't noticed. The change wouldn't have affected the Imbran's timing, or her knowledge of events. It only meant that after 24 hours had passed, Miss Hawksbill's loop would repeat itself, while the bygone world beyond its membrane would tick on into the future, or the later past, or whatever you wanted to call it, if you were still there to experience it. Thinking about it was starting to make my head ache, and I was grateful to be spared further contemplation of it when Miss Hawksbill suddenly veered us off the road and behind a tree.
"Wait,"
she said, raising her good arm to hold us back. We waited. After a few seconds, she furrowed her brow, puzzled, and pulled a watch out of her dress pocket. She tapped it and held it up to her ear.
"Is something the matter?"
Horace asked.
"Damn thing's late,"
she muttered.
"What is?" That's when we heard the sound of an approaching engine, and leaning around the tree, I could see the shape of a massive truck gathering in the fog. "The troop transport," she said. "It's 9 seconds late." She shook her head in frustration. "Is that bad?" Nora said, mostly to me. "I'm afraid I've let my loop shift a tiny bit." Miss Hawksbill popped open the watch's case and twiddled its dial as the truck rumbled by. "I haven't been as diligent with my resets as I used to be. Sometimes my wards let me sleep late, but I only have to make this slight mathematical compensation. Now, see here. Pothole!" She sang out, and the truck banged loudly through a hole in the road. She nodded at her watch. 9 1/4 seconds. Millard corralled us in a private huddle. "Not to worry. Everything will happen in exactly the same order she's used to, and just a bit later than before." The truck disappeared into the fog. Miss Hawksbill snapped shut her watch. "Come on, then." We had, as usual, little choice but to entrust our lives to a person who, in the normal world, would be considered deeply unwell. We continued along the road for a while, then jogged down a footpath. The sound of the guns grew less frequent, but louder as we approached the front. The fog began to clear. "The battle has mostly moved on from here," Miss Hawksbill said, "but it's still quite possible to get your head shot off. Watch me closely." We passed remnants of fighting, empty crates that had contained rations and equipment, a splintered wagon, an exhausted medic sitting with his head on his knees near some bodies covered by a tarp. Through a break in some trees, we saw a line of soldiers laboring to dig a new trench in half-frozen ground. A grim thought occurred to me. That would become their home, and perhaps their grave. Now and then a soldier would pass us, trudging in the opposite direction. "Walk as if you belong here, and they won't bother you," Miss Hawksbill told us. Some gave us curious looks, but she was right. They all had more important things to deal with than an old lady and some kids. All but one soldier paid us no mind. He marched up to Miss Hawksbill with his eyes full of fire. "No women and children!" he shouted, but as he began to turn away, she put a hand on his cheek and swiped a feather under his nose in what was the quickest memory wipe I had ever seen. And then he stood blinking and befuddled as we continued on our way. The path flattened and the woods thinned out. We hugged the edge of a clearing where 2 soldiers were operating a massive artillery gun. As we were passing, one of them shouted, "Fire in the hole!" And we just had time to clap our hands over our ears before the gun went off. It shook the ground and sent such a shock wave through the air that my vision briefly distorted. But hardly a moment later, the gunners were joking and helping one another light cigarettes. Miss Hawksbill glanced at us over her shoulder. Addison looked a bit unsteady, but my other friends, who'd lived with bombs dropping near them for most of their lives, seemed as unfazed as the 2 gunners. We walked on. The road began to sink and then to narrow, its sides rising gradually around us. A scarred sign read, "Catacombs." 2 more in English, "Crouch perpetually," and "Helmet at all times." Miss Hawksbill stopped us. "Have you got gas masks in those packs of yours?" We did not. "Do we really need them?" Emma asked. "Only if you don't want to go blind," she said. "But I know where we can get some. Come on." The sides of the road kept rising until they became walls made of sandbags and sawed logs.
And then suddenly we were entering the trenches. Their walls continued to narrow until you had to squeeze against the sandbag wall to let someone pass going the other way. The composition of the ground degraded from dirt into mud, a gluey morass that sucked at our feet. Soon we were covered in it from the shins down, and Miss Hawksbill's dress was 1/4 filth. It amazed me how deftly she navigated here, despite her wildly inappropriate clothes. And here are a couple pictures. And there's the trench. Fun stuff. The trench was mostly, but not completely, abandoned. We passed soldiers tucked into nooks and stretched out on benches cut into the wall, sleeping, smoking, and reading. A few looked no older than me or my friends. At least one looked younger, his cheeks smooth, but his eyes ancient with pain. No wonder most of them didn't look twice at me or Enoch or Horace. We could have been them. They stared at Emma, though, and Nor most of all, who was not only young and female, but brown-skinned. Only a skeleton crew of soldiers remained in this section of trench. The big action, Miss Hawksbill told us, was miles away, but that didn't mean the machine gun nest on either side of no man's land had been abandoned, or that the mortars had stopped falling, or that it would be much easier to cross here than it was a mile down the line. And I still had no idea how Miss Hawksbill was going to get us across that patch of hell in broad daylight. I bumped into Nor, who had just collided with Miss Hawksbill's back. "Wait," the Empress said, her good hands signaling us to stop. 9 1/4. Now duck! And she waved us down, and we all squatted in the mud. A percussive blast shook the ground, and then a fine rain of dirt fell over us. Then she waved us up, and we were moving again. We clambered over a mound of smashed wood and a half-collapsed trench wall. I nearly tripped over a man's leg poking out from the debris. "Do not stop," Miss Hawksbill said loudly, and Bronwyn, who had hung back to dig the man out, gritted her teeth and forced herself to keep walking. "I know it's all ancient history," she said, "but I can't help it. I have feelings." "Do not look at anything but me," Miss Hawksbill said, "unless you want all these bygone horrors to live in your memory forever." I did not. I did my best to lock my eyes on Nor's backpack and the back of Miss Hawksbill's head and nothing else. We ducked under a series of wooden bridges built across the top of the trench. Miss Hawksbill stopped our line and disappeared through the door of a small, dark bunker. She rummaged noisily, then came out with a stack of gas masks and handed them out. "Let's hope these fit," she said dubiously. It wasn't the first time an Imbrin had handed me a gas mask. I was reminded of the night I first witnessed a Lupri set, cowering in Miss Peregrine's garden as rain and bombs fell from the sky and she timed her watch to a children's song.
put them on now?" asked Bronwyn. "I'll tell you," Miss Hawksbill replied. I slid my arm through the straps and let it dangle from my elbow as I walked. A short time later, we came to a row of ladders leaned against the sandbags. There were dozens of them, spaced 20 feet apart down the length of the trench. Miss Hawksbill slowed, bending to inspect each one. "We cross here," she said, stopping decisively by a ladder with a broken rung and a speckling of cigarette butts around it. Horace peered down the row of ladders. "You're sure?" She gave him a withering stare. "As sure as any Imbrin can be who's walked the environs of our loop for 100 years. She nodded behind her. "That crossing gets you shot to ribbons." She nodded the other way. "That one gets you blown to Cassoulet. I have seen every potential route attempted, often at the cost of life and limb, so yes, I'm sure. Unless you'd rather wait 7 hours and 12 minutes for the scout at German Watch Post 7B to drink himself into a stupor, though I've had complaints about that route, as it involves swimming through a soup of choleric corpse water and taking refuge for 12 minutes inside the remains of a horse." Horace looked at his boots. This route will be fine." Addison lifted his paws onto the ladder's first rung. "Could someone boost me, please?" "Not quite yet," said Miss Hawksbill, reaching down to pat him. "Be ready in 4 minutes and, She consulted her watch. 7 seconds. Until then, make yourselves comfortable." A rattle of gunfire somewhere down the trench made me startle. "Let's get cozy," Enoch said with a snicker. He unshouldered his pack and dropped it in the mud. "Anyone want to give me a shoulder rub?" Bronwyn proceeded to, but Enoch flinched away, yelping, "Ow, not so hard!" Miss Hawksbill was flicking mud blobs from her dress and readjusting her sling when she looked up as if she'd just remembered something. "Does anyone need a pep talk before we go up and over? I'm not very good at them, but I'll have a try if it would help." Distantly, a man was screaming. "I'd like to hear your pep talk," Bronwyn said. Miss Hawksbill cleared her throat. "Death comes for us all," she began in a loud voice. Bronwyn grimaced. "And never mind. I think I'd prefer some quiet." "Suit yourselves," Miss Hawksbill said with a shrug. Enoch straightened one of the stubbed-out cigarettes and held it toward Emma. "Light?" Emma made a gagging face. "That's disgusting, Enoch." Miss Hawksbill walked away to memory wipe a soldier who'd been staring at us a little too long, and as she was coming back, Nor hooked me around the arm. "Come talk to her with me," she said. We intercepted Miss Hawksbill while she was still beyond hearing range of the others. "Could I ask you something?" Nor said in an undertone. "You have 2 minutes, 3 seconds," Miss Hawksbill replied. Nor leaned in close. "Is there anything else you can tell us about the prophecy? We found out I was one of the 7, and we found out about this meeting place, but..." Miss Hawksbill looked at Nor expectantly. "When we're all finally together, the 7 of us, what do we do?" The Embrin's eyes narrowed. "You're one of the 7, and you don't know?" Nor shook her head. She'd missed out on so much, not having V in her life. "The Embrin who was supposed to bring me here died before she could tell me anything." She didn't mention the part about resurrecting V's dead body to prime her for clues. "I'm sorry, dear. I don't have any more information to give you." "Bullet!" She pointed to a sandbag just above and to the side of Nor's head, and with a soft pff, it was struck by a German round. She glanced at her watch, which she'd pinned to her sleeve. "Well, It's about that time, isn't it?
I just like to think of her as this crazy, batshit old lady.
She kind of makes me think of Edith from All in the Family, like Archie Bunker's wife, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's a picture. Because she's easily the most batshit of them. And I wanted to do this batshit old lady voice, but I can't do it with a French accent. So we're cutting that out. Because she needs to be batshit, right? She needs to, right? I'm right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry I can't do it better.
That's okay.
But she needs to be crazy. Miss Hawksbill insisted we put on our masks. Before strapping on her own, she stood on the ladder's first rung and said,
The 250 meters that lie hid between here and the German lines are, in the words of a poet, the abode of madness. So please corral your eyes, pin them to the back of the person in front of you, and do not let them row. She counted down on her watch. 9 1/4. Right.
She began to climb. At the top of the ladder, she didn't hesitate, didn't pause to peer over the breach, but hauled herself over the top.
Up and over, she cried, out of sight now. Watch that broken rung.
I cut in front of Nor and climbed the ladder after Miss Hawksbill, though Nor objected with a mask-muffled, "Hey!" I figured if Miss Hawksbill's 9 1/4 second calculations were off a little, it would be better if I took the bullet rather than Nor. Of course, if a bomb landed on us, it wouldn't matter what order our line was in. We'd all be dead. I could hear my friends yelling to psych themselves up as I launched myself over the top of the sandbag wall. The sky reappeared, such as it was, a whirl of shifting smoke framed by walls of barbed wire. I picked myself up and ran in a crouch after Miss Hawksbill, who was yelling, "Go, go, go!" And all I could see was her back and an inky moonscape of mud, haze, and the blackened stumps of trees. This used to be a forest, I thought. We clustered together in a tight line and followed Miss Hawksbill at a jogging pace, which was as fast as any of us could go. There was no flat ground anywhere. Every step was a calculation, a potential broken ankle. Shredded wood and shrapnel stippled the ground, nor banged into my back as I crouched down to follow Miss Hawksbill through a hole in some barbed wire. Gunfire sliced through the air, but if someone was aiming at us, their aim was way off. We'd made it maybe halfway across when Miss Hawksbill held up her good arm. "Now stop!" she shouted and waved us down. We all dropped to the ground except Enoch, who had turned to stare at something as a patch of smoke cleared. My God, I could raise such a fearsome army of the dead here. I tackled him to the ground around the waist and we slammed into the mud. "Hey, what are you—" A shell landed not far from us. The blast felt like a kick to the head, and the world turned black for a moment. My ears rang as the sky cleared of falling dirt, and before he could thank me, Bronwyn pulled us to our feet again, and we were running after Miss Hawksbill. She took sharp, seemingly random turns, cutting left or right for no obvious reason, until a short time after we'd left a certain path, a volley of bullets cut the air or a mortar shell dropped in a place we'd recently been. Miss Hawksbill knew every hazard by heart, every minuscule event down to the moment, had committed to memory the timings of 100,000 interlocking occurrences. The farther we went, the more I was in awe of her. My lungs burned, both from running non-stop and from bad air that had seeped through my mask's imperfect seal, smoke and death and traces of residual gas. Ahead of us, I could see a wall of barbed wire, and beyond that, more trenches. The German line. Here is a picture. Thank you. And here is another one. Thank you. Miss Hawksbill guided us to a collapsed trench wall, and we slid down into the trench. She was moving almost casually at this point, and seemed no more stressed than if she'd been on a moderately strenuous hike. Meanwhile, my heart was clattering in my chest. Now that we were in the enemy's domain, I expected at any moment to get shot at close range by a surprised German soldier. But this section of trenches was even more sparsely populated than the British ones we'd recently left. We did have to hide once, Miss Hawksbill shoving us into a bunker while 2 soldiers passed. Then another 50 paces or so down the line, she stopped at a junction.
This bit is unpleasant, but necessary, she hissed over her shoulder, and then she picked up a wooden board from the ground, raised it, and 5 seconds later brought it down on the head of an unhelmeted soldier as he rounded the corner. He slumped to the ground.
"Good show," Horace said admiringly. Soon we were out of the trenches and past the front line. Miss Hawksbill took off her gas mask and tossed it aside, and the rest of us followed suit. We came into the crumbling town Miss Hawksbill had pointed out from the hilltop. If it had once been a bustling place, it was now little more than a ruin, bombed and sacked and almost entirely deserted. Except for a few skinny dogs rummaging through the wreckage of buildings, we saw no living creatures at all. The entrance to Miss Turn's Loop was inside the town zoo. We entered through a still-standing iron gate. We made our way to the bear pit, climbed down into it, and went through a wooden door in the side wall. Inside, we felt a rush of time and gravity. We had crossed over.
I feel it's acceptable. There you go.
Oh, she is going to claw me to bits.
Well, you get a 2-second thing and then I put her back out.
Are you going to... Yep. Yep. Everybody say hi to surprise guest Minty. Right on time. Just hello.
You want me to take her?
She's fine. It's just most of the time when I'm reading, she tries to climb all into the book. Like she wants to lay on it. And if that happens, it's a problem. Ah, you're stuck to my pants. Chapter 15. No sooner had the door opened than a bear's face appeared in the crack. There was a sudden rush backward against the wall to escape it, except by Addison and Miss Hawksbill, who let the bear sniff them.
Bonjour, Jacques, Miss Hawksbill said pleasantly. J'ai amené des invités pour rentrer visiter ma sœur.
The bear stepped back away from the door to let us pass.
Jacques is one of my sister's grim bears, Miss Hawksbill explained. He guards this loop entrance.
Pleased to meet you, Addison said. Jacques growled and Addison looked offended. No, I'm not making fun. Some of my best friends are bears. Jacques moved back to let us pass.
Not everyone thinks as highly of grims as we Inbrins do, said Miss Hawksbill. Now come on, step lively. No more bombs to watch out for here. You're all safe in this loop.
We climbed out of the bear pit, to the great surprise of some workers peering down from the viewing platform above.
The grim bear roared behind us, and Miss Hawksbill shouted goodbye and waved to him, and then we made our way out of the zoo. Here, the sun was out, the sky cloudless and smokeless. I couldn't hear any guns or explosions, a welcome reprieve for my overtaxed nerves. It was 1916 in Miss Turn's Loop, and while the war was close, this town had not yet been overrun. The front lines weren't far away, though, and the townspeople must have known that the tide could turn against them at any time. Here's your bear.
I'm gonna get him.
Right. Right. Sorry, Dad is showing me his chicken game. Anyway, as we walked out of the zoo and into the town, Addison muttered unhappily about the cages, though most were empty. Most brutal thing in the world, zoos, he said. How would humans like it if we displayed them in cages? Bentham had a plan for a human zoo, said Millard. Normals collected from around the world, penned up in habitats that mimicked the places they'd lived. I read about it in his book. He wrote a book? I said. Part of one. I found an unfinished copy in his office. Myron Bentham's Menagerie of Unextraordinary Children. Part museum catalog, part encyclopedia, part peculiar history. We walked through the town's peaceful streets, talking about Bentham's museum and the morality of zoos, both human and animal. I was grateful for any conversation that distracted my mind from the horrors we just hiked through. My nerves were still jumping from the ceaseless crash of bombs and guns, my chest still clenched from it, and with every break in our chatter, my mind filled with scenes from No Man's Land. So we kept our mouths moving along with our feet. We passed a crowd in the town square that had gathered to watch a strangely somber parade of elephants. There was no calliope music to accompany them, no clowns or acrobats, just a glum pair of trainers to prod them along. They're being evacuated to England, Miss Hawksbill told us. In a few weeks, a lot of these townsfolk will wish they joined them. We walked on toward the outskirts of town, where Miss Hawksbill pointed out the roof of her sister's house, peeking up from the trees at the top of the hill. To reach it, we climbed a winding, forested lane. Animal sculptures made of iron and wood were half hidden in the bushes, and in deeper shadows, I thought I could see creatures scurrying to follow us. Peculiar ones, no doubt. I can't believe we made it, said Bronwyn. For a while there, I wondered if we would. Here's your elephant picture. Sad elephants. Bronwyn, you'll jinx us, Emma scolded her. Seriously, Nor said. Save it until we actually meet them. If this gets written up in the Muckracker, we're gonna look like heroes, Enoch said. Do you think they'll print pictures of us? Maybe that Vixen Francesca will finally go on a date with me. I'll be sure and tell Farish Abuelo how Jacob saved your life on the battlefield, said Emma. Francesca will love that. Oh, shut up. He did not. I can't believe you're talking about publicity, said Horace. There won't even be a muckracker, much less any vixens to impress, if Nor can't manage to... He caught himself and awkwardly changed tack. Look at that fascinating sculpture. Is that a crane? Nor kicked a stone with her boot. Thanks, Horace. Little extra pressure. It's just what I needed. For what it's worth, we'll believe in you. That makes one of us. Come now, don't be a defeatist, said Miss Hawksbill. Nor sighed. It might be easier to believe in myself if I had any idea what was expected of me. I dare say you'll find out soon enough. Now, when you meet Miss Turn, please play along. To her, it's still 1916, and she knows nothing of Call's death or resurrection, or that a loop will collapse in a week. I'd ask you to please not inform her. She tends to get very upset. She saw something ahead of us, then brightened and quickened her pace. Ha ha, ma chérie! A young woman ran down the driveway toward us, her pretty face lit by a wide smile. Mon, tu es manque! She seemed to be in her late 20s and wore a fashionable army green coat with a floppy beret. Miss Turn's smile faltered as she took in the sight of her sister, who must have looked much older than she remembered. But Miss Hawksbill pulled her into a double-cheeked kiss and a hug before she could say anything. Enoch gaped. That's the old crone's sister? But she's so... young? Nor said. This is a collapsed loop, remember? Said Millard. Miss Hawksbill probably looked equally young when this loop was new. Dead a week hence, Enoch said with a sigh. What a waste of beauty. She never would have gone for you anyway, Bronwyn said. Not to mention, she's an Imbrin for Bird's sake. Imbrins need love too. Just because they're not allowed to marry doesn't mean... Emma stopped him with a dig of her elbow. Don't be revolting. There's nothing revolting about love, you Victorian prudes. Miss Tarn's smile had vanished, and she was looking her sister up and down while speaking intimately in French. She wants to know what happened to Miss Hawksbill's arm, Millard whispered, and why she looks so old. I'm testing a new disguise from the skin tailor, said Miss Hawksbill, replying in English for our benefit while giving us a subtle wink. And my Grim rolled over me in his sleep. She patted her sister's arm, then drew her in for another hug. I'll tell you about it later. The Imbrins walked toward us, arm in arm. My, such a lot of visitors today, Miss Turn remarked, which got my attention. To what do I owe the pleasure? They're on a grand tour of the Continental Loops, Miss Hawksbill answered for us, and heard about your wonderful menagerie. It's a must-see, Miss Turn said proudly. Did you know we were partially fictionalized in one of the more recent Tales of the Peculiar? That's why we're here, said Millard, and then he bowed and introduced himself. We had to see this famous place for ourselves. The Tale of Pensibes, Nora said, to which Miss Turn nodded. Is Penny here now? Her brow arched. You know him? He was mine for a while, when I was young. She looked impressed. Well, you must be someone very special. I'm sure he'd love to see you again. He's in the house with a girl named Sophie, who rarely lets him out of her grip. Here you go, and here's Miss Turn and some cranes. Cranes are terrifying up close. Is that me?
No.
Okay. Good to know.
Distance beautiful, close I'm gonna poop my pants.
Thought I'd ask. I was like, just me? Any large bird, really.
Yeah.
There was a rustle from the bushes, and a flock of chickens darted across our path. No, thank you, Millard yelped, scurrying behind Bronwyn. Are those the exploding type? I see you're familiar with peculiar zoology, said Miss Turn. Addison trotted to the front. Armageddon chickens only lay eggs early in the morning, he said, and only in their coops. Addison rose up on hind legs and extended a paw. Addison McHenry, 7th pup of the 7th pup and an illustrious line of hunting dogs. Miss Turn was clearly delighted. You are one of Miss Wren's. She took his paw. Your mistress is a close friend of mine. I owe her a visit. I hope you'll feel at home here, though I'm sure my menagerie pales in comparison to that of the great Miss Wren. Addison tried to smile, but looked pained. Oh, I don't know about that. His home, like ours, was lost, along with many of his friends. Thank you. I'll pass along your regards. You said something about visitors? Noor said, flashing Miss Hawksbill an urgent look. Yes, said Miss Hawksbill, taking her cue. We'd be curious to meet them and perhaps freshen up from our journey across the line. Yes, it's a most unpleasant trip on foot, said Miss Turn, like passing through the gears of a great meat grinder. She shuddered in a way that seemed distinctly bird-like, then looked perplexed. My visitors didn't tell me. They arrived a few days ago, but strangely, I don't remember it. They were here when I woke this morning. She shrugged. Peculiar things happen all the time in loops. Her memory resets every day along with the loop, Millard whispered to Nora and me. They've sequestered themselves in the upstairs parlor, Miss Turn continued. They're having some sort of meeting at which I'm evidently not welcome. She briefly frowned, bothered but trying not to show it. But you can try to meet them. Miss Hawksbill put a hand on her sister's back. Sister, if you'd show us the way. D'accord, she said flatly, and I could see in her pinched expression the weight of the strangeness that was piling up. Her unfriendly visitors, her sister's inexplicable aging, us. But she walked on and asked no more questions, at least not of my friends and me, speaking quietly with Miss Hawksbill in French as we continued up the drive. There was so much waiting for us, it was hard not to break into a run. Noor hummed to herself, tension rounding her shoulders and practically crackling the air. And when we came around a bend and the house revealed itself, it was a grand old chateau that, architecturally speaking, had been given the works. Triple-peaked roof, beautiful domed entryway, fancy woodwork, a colonnade framing the ground floor. But much of it was hidden beneath a drape of leaves and vines, which made the house look like it was being eaten by the forest. Pardon our appearance, Miss Turn said. It's meant to camouflage the house from bomb-dropping airplanes. It didn't get a chance to remove it before making the loop, so now we're stuck with it. If Miss P had gotten some camouflage, maybe we wouldn't have had to get soaked standing outdoors every night at our loop reset, Enoch said sourly. Wouldn't have been worth the aesthetic trade-off, Horace remarked, wrinkling his nose at the scene before us. Our house was much too beautiful. A pair of horses grazing up the front lawn watched with muted interest as we walked past them to the porch. When they were behind us, I thought I heard one of them whisper, and the other gave a nickering laugh in reply. Here's your house, which looks amazing.
Remind me to show you a mansion.
remind me to show me a mansion? Remind you to show me a mansion.
Yes.
What? What mansion? Never mind. It doesn't matter. We'll forget about it. I'm like, what? Okay. We followed a trail of grimy hoofprints inside the house.
The animals live downstairs. I live upstairs,
Miss Turn explained. We scooted around a donkey in the foyer and came into a palatial living room that had been turned into a stable. Goats with long horns munched garbage beneath grime-dimmed windows, and an intricate parquet floor was mostly hidden under a tide of dirt and straw. Velvet curtains had been torn down and spun into nests for a flock of honking, long-necked birds. A winged monkey leapt onto a grand chandelier, sending it swinging as he howled at us. But after Miss Turn chastised him, he dropped to the floor again, tucked his wings away, and rejoined two monkey companions who were having tea around a little table. I understood now why Miss Wren's loop had mostly been outdoors, just simple structures on a wide hilltop.
Everyone's a bit on edge today, Miss Turn apologized. They're not accustomed to having so many strangers about.
Where are they? Nora said sharply, her eyes scanning the room.
In the drawing room, through that door there.
She pointed to a tall door across the room.
I don't suppose you'd like a tour of the house first, or something to drink?
Only Millard had patience and manners enough to politely decline. The rest of us were already walking toward the door, desperate to finally meet the other prophesied kids. Miss Turn tried to follow, but Miss Hawksbill held her back.
Let's sit and talk a while,
she pleaded, and led her outside. The tall door opened onto a smaller room, considerably cleaner and free of animals. Free of people altogether, at first glance, with a great curving staircase leading up to a balcony landing where daylight streamed through a glass ceiling. "Hello?" I called out. "We're looking for..." Suddenly, everything went black. The lights stolen from the room so fast that the words stalled in my mouth.
"What's happened?"
Horace shouted. "Someone turned out the damn..." Enoch started to say. Then, in a clatter, I heard him trip and fall.
"We come in peace,"
Bronwyn called. Emma sparked her hand flames, which lit her face, etched with fear. Then a brighter light drew my eyes up to the balcony. The source was a woman who appeared not just to be illuminated by fire, but made of it, and the sight of her made several of us gasp. She was toweringly tall, wore the plate armor of a medieval knight, and in her hands she wielded a huge broadsword, also flaming. We took a collective step backward, but none of us turned and ran. "Who are you?" the woman said in a resounding voice. "Why have you come?"
"We're the wards of Alma Peregrine," shouted Emma, attempting to match the woman's volume. "We're accompanying one of the seven," said Horace, his voice loud but wavering. "You know, from the prophecy of the..." The woman's flames burned brighter as her voice rang out. "Which of you is the Light Eater?" The Light Eater. They already knew. Instinctively, my hand shot out to stop Nor, but she took off my grasp. "I am," she said, taking a step forward. "Are you one of the seven?" "You are meant to come with only an Imbrin. Where is Velya?" At the mention of V's name, Nor stiffened, but quickly recovered. "She died." "Then how did you find this place?" Velya gave me a clue, and we followed it here." "Without the Imbrin to vouch for your name, you must prove yourself. Come forward and meet me if you are truly one of the seven."
The firewoman moved to the staircase and started down it. I grabbed one of Nor's elbows and Bronwyn hooked the other. "It could be a trap," I said through my teeth. "Let her go," said Horace. "I think this is what needs to happen." We did, reluctantly. Nor met the firewoman at the bottom of the stairs. For a moment, they only stood, tensed and facing each other. And then the woman heaved the sword above her head. It flamed brighter as she raised it, throwing light to the corners of the room. "Stop!" I screamed, but it was too late. The sword was already coming down. Nor brought up her hands and caught the blade between them, and in one smooth motion, she stole the sword from the woman's hands, then collapsed it into a ball of light between her palms and shoved it into her mouth. The woman stumbled, righted herself, and let her arms fall to her sides. "Very good," she said, smiling. "Very good indeed." Nor swallowed. Her throat glowed as the sword's flame traveled toward her stomach. "How did you know I was a light eater?" "Because," said a young man's voice from the dark, "we all are." He appeared in a pool of light below the staircase, light that appeared to be emanating from inside his head, then drew a breath and blew out a room full of daylight. In a few seconds, his head returned to a normal shade, and the space around us was transformed from night black to midday, rays of sunshine streaking down through high windows. The young man looked about 18. He had smooth, dark skin and was dressed immaculately in a pinstripe suit, bowler hat, and thin leather gloves, which he was pulling onto his hands as he strode toward us. "My name is Julius," he said, "and that's Sebi." I assumed he meant the firewoman, but she was shrinking before our eyes, dimming out and collapsing into a ball of scintillating orange light. It flew up the stairs and into the hands of a small, pale girl on the balcony. Her arm extended like an outfielder catching a fly ball. It smacked into her palm, and then she smashed it flat with her other hand, stretched it into a rope, slurped it quickly into her mouth like spaghetti, and let out a little belch. "Hello," she boomed, and I was shocked to hear the firewoman's giant voice coming from a tiny girl of no more than 10. "It's about time you showed up." "Sorry about the unfriendly welcome," said the girl, Sebi, as she descended the stairs. "Had to make sure you were really one of us." She wore a white flapper dress and a dour expression, spoke with an Eastern European accent, and seemed to hate bright light. Stepping into a pool of sun by a window, she swiped the light away, leaving her face in a dim shadow she would take with her everywhere. Julius joined us at the base of the stairs, where we had all gathered. "We were expecting one girl and one Imbrin. Not a party." "It's a long story," said Nor. "We've got time." Julius crossed his arms. "Are you people hungry?" "We really don't have time," said Millard. "Where are the others?" Sebi shrugged. "This is all of us, so far. Our Imbrins dropped us off here a couple days ago." Emma looked confused. "Dropped you off and went away?" "They worried their presence here might attract too much attention," Julius explained. "We don't require babysitting." "There was another boy," Sebi said, "but he got bored of waiting around and left." Nor's eyes bugged. "What do you mean, left?" "We need 7 to shut the door," Horace fretted. Julius waved a hand. He'll be back, I imagine. Nora looked like she was ready to pull out her hair. What about the other three? I said. Where are they?
Sophie says they're on their way, Sebi said.
You people seem very on edge, Julius said. I really think you should come upstairs with us and eat something. I began to wonder whether they had any idea why they'd been called here.
How much do you know about the prophecy? Nora asked them.
That there is one, and that's why we're here, Julius replied.
Our Embrins didn't tell us much. Sebi batted away a ray of light that had strayed across her face. Do you know what all this is about?
They'd been spared the details. Their Embrins apparently afraid of scaring them. Of course, until recently, the prophecy had been unknown to most and taken seriously by very few.
Have you never heard of Call? Emma asked.
They had, of course. Why? Does this concern him?
Julius asked. I thought he was dead, Sebi said.
They were starting to look worried. We gave them the short version of the bad news. Call had been trapped in the collapsed Library of Souls, fulfilling a major part of the prophecy, had been recently resurrected, and was now more powerful than ever.
Andy has a new hologhast, I said. And he's coming for our loop of last refuge, Devil's Acre, Horace added. If he gets control of it in the Panlupticon, no loop anywhere is safe, not even the most remote ones.
Julius nodded pensively. So, it's down to us, is what you're saying? He still didn't sound very concerned.
It very well might be, said Millard. Other than holding him off and hoping he goes away, you 7 are the best hope we've got. Except it's just 3 of us, Nor said. The others are coming, Sebi insisted. As for the boy who went walkabout, Sophie and Pensivus said he couldn't have gone far. They went out to retrieve him a few hours ago.
He had the personality of a warthog, anyway, Julius said. Nora was getting jumpy, picking at her hands.
Okay, we can't control that right now, so whatever, she said. But do any of you even know what we're supposed to do?
Julius cocked his head at her. Do? For a moment, she looked like she might scream.
How do we fight Call? How do we shut the door? None of you have any idea.
Well, the answer seems a little more clear than it did an hour ago, Millard said.
It does? She said, spinning to face him.
Mm-hmm. He turned to Julius and Sebi. The one who came before you. What did he do? Julius said. He was a light eater, like us.
Ah!
Millard clapped his hands. Then I'd wager all 7 of you are, so it's no stretch to assume that shutting the door has something to do with eating light. Nora's eyes went wide, and she nodded slowly.
Maybe Call's made of light now? Emma hypothesized. And you just need to,
Eat him? Said Enoch. Bronwyn winced.
Gross.
But what about the door? I asked.
Could be a metaphor, said Horace. Prophecy is 51% poetry, 49% facts.
I'm 51% starving, said Julius. Pensivus will know what we need to do. When he comes back, we'll ask him. Now, if you don't mind. Miss Hearn had set out a lunch for us before you arrived. Julius. He looks fly.
Oh, handsome. He looks dapper AF.
I love the fit. I want that fit.
Sames.
Yeah.
I need that fit.
And last picture. Minty, you were being so good right now. You're hooked onto my sweater. Ah. And that is the end of chapter 15. How long is 16 then? If it's short enough. Maybe. No, it doesn't look like it. Of course it's not. No, it's 33 pages. There's no way.
No.
There's no way. Yeah, and there's like 5 pictures. So it's still upper 20s. So, yeah. No. Yeah. 28 pages. I don't think we'll get through that in 20 minutes. So, and I don't want to rush it. Did you lay on my bookmark? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Do you have it? Ow. Ow. Oh my god. Okay, I found it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, she stole my toe tag.
That little butthead.
Like my toe tag.
We
don't have that much left.
Sleep.
We don't have that much left.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's only 500 pages.
I feel like the other ones are longer.
Huh?
I feel like one of the other ones was longer.
This is the longest one, I think.
Oh.
It's Map of Days might be longer.
Yeah.
By a little bit, maybe. Unsure. But that one was a different size than the other ones.
Now I'm gonna check something right here.
Meh. Oh, please. I just want a gentle pet. Ow. I can't.
Jerk, Minty.
What? She is hooked on here. She is hooked.
Oh, this one's 480.
Oh, okay. So it is more. Yeah, it's very close, though. It's a close call. Do you like Secret Cat Forest?
I love
Question. Dad loves it.
I play it every night right before I close my eyes to go to sleep.
He plays it every night before he closes his eyes to go to sleep.
Yeah.
28. 28 pages of actual story. I don't want to rush it. It's 20 minutes.
Also, we still gotta fit in cat facts.
We have to do cat facts. And then we have to stream Cult of the Lamb co-op.
Yeah.
And we have to get Minty detached from me. And I have to eat because I have not eaten.
Hang on.
But
Okay, now you're detached.
thank you.
Yep.
Because I couldn't do it because I would have to. It's hard to.
Yeah.
Other arm. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I can show you my new Lovecraft anthology. If Dad would hand it to me.
If.
Just slap it right on top of Minty. There we go. What do you think? Weighty? Hefty? It's not
Comfy.
moving. So, anyway,
She enjoys it.
we're going to be going over Persians today. Don't say it. 1 pun a week. Okay. The Persian cat is thought to originate in Persia, modern-day Iran, hence its name.
Records of fluffy cats resembling modern Persian cats date back hundreds of years. Although modern Persian cats don't share genetic markers of cats from the Middle East or Asia, that could be because the brand was adopted by breeders in the Western world, which is where modern championship cat shows began. Over time, Persian cats have been bred closely to the point that their facial features are an extreme version of the original competition cats in the late 1800s. Like the modern bulldog, these cats have massive heads that make it difficult for kittens to be born, and their extremely shortened facial features lead to increased respiratory and other problems of the kinds experienced by bulldogs, pugs, and other smushed-faced types. One very famous Persian cat, the rotating Fancy Feast Spokes cat, has come from the same breeder for over half a century. These Persian cats have a traditional look, meaning their noses are not excessively shortened. This type is also called a doll-face Persian and experiences far fewer health problems while still being both very cute and very distinctively Persian. In fact, many show guidelines favor the extreme type of Persian cat, but the public seems to like the sweet and relatable doll face better.
Baby.
Ooh, look at that baby.
The baby.
I think I'm full up on cats. We have 5 cats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can handle another cat.
Mm-mm.
It's adorable. Anyway. And now I can show you my new Lovecraft anthology. Look at it. It's so pretty. It's so glossy. Look at it.
Do this with it so they can see it, the light and everything like that hit it so they can see the reflections. Yeah.
All the eyes.
They glow.
All the eyes glow. It's so neat. Okay. Also, it has background for a lot of the stories in here, and the Cats of Ulthar are in here. I love that. I love that story, and I don't have it in a book. I only have it on ebook. So, like, I feel like at one point I did, but so now we have new editions because there's some in here that aren't in my other anthology because I just end up collecting Lovecraft anthologies. But I didn't have the Transition of Juan Romero. I didn't have The Doom That Came to Sarnath. I didn't have Oblivion, The Quest of Arenan. None of that. So there's a lot in here that I didn't have before. And there's some repeats. I already had the Rats in the Walls, and, the Music of Eric Zahn, which is one of my favorites. Pickman's Model, again, one of my favorites. But it's so pretty. Mm-hmm. It's so pretty. Okay. Anyway, I had to show off my new acquisition that I picked up the other day. Mm-hmm. Anyway, did you want to hold it? Is that why you're...
Oh, I thought you were going to pass it back to me, so that's why I was just waiting patiently.
Do you want
for whatever?
Do you want to flip through it?
Yeah,
you can flip through
kinda.
Yeah, there's pictures.
Oh, there's pictures.
There's pictures.
Now I'm really excited. And you might end up playing Call of the Lamb by yourself because there's pictures. You'll take the book away?
No, you have to. Yeah, well, one, we gotta open my file, my personal file, because I want to unlock. You can only unlock the
goat.
You can only unlock the goat fleece if you have
played.
Yeah.
With the goat.
So
yes.
It doesn't. I thought maybe it would just register the game in general. It doesn't. You have to open it on each individual file. So you have to join my game on my file, immediately leave, so then I have the option to get the fleece, and then we gotta go back and play the stream file.
Okay.
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 Also, I gotta show you the Metcalf Mansion.
What?
There is a mansion back home that this young couple have decided. And I say mansion, it was built in 1895.
Uh-huh.
And this younger couple have done nothing but rebuild the whole thing. And it's
Okay.
they're
This
going
seems
period
off
appropriate.
stream.
I know.
It's okay. But yeah, we've concluded our business for the evening. I will be back next week to read you more of the Desolations of Devil's Acre. And this will go up on YouTube in the interim. I will also upload the chapter that we missed from last week once I get my hands on it. And after this, I'll be in Discord playing Cult of the Lamb. So if you want to hang out there, that would be awesome. If you don't, no big deal. I'll see you next week. Thank you all for joining me. And I'll hold you hostage again on Tuesday at 8 Central. Good night. Minty, do you have any parting words for... Minty's asleep.
Just little snores.
Dad, do you have any parting words for the people in the chat?
Hydrate or die straight.
Okay. There you have it. Hydrate or die straight, apparently. So... drink water. Then drink something else, Aoife. I don't know how to explain this better. Anyway, no, I'm joking. It doesn't matter. Water is for everybody. Everybody drink water. And yeah, I have a feeling when I get up, she's gonna snag the back of the sweater immediately.
Oh, 100%.
She likes napping here next to me a lot of the time. So I feel like when I get up... Oh. Did you want to say anything before you... No? Okay. Minty has no words for you. She's moving. I wonder if I pick her up if she'll get mad. No water, only ale 8. Yes.
Okay.
We can't find ale 8 anywhere. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's definitely not here. It might be over there. Because we can't find it. All the college kids are drinking it. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Yeah, those assholes. Fuck them kids. No. Anyway, good night. Thank you for joining me. And I'll see you in a few.